Since June 2010, 180 launches of rockets from the Falcon 9 family have taken place, with 178 complete missions, 1 partial mission failure, and 1 complete loss of the spacecraft. Moreover, before a static fire test was scheduled, 1 rocket and its cargo were destroyed on the launch pad during the fueling procedure. Despite these failures, SpaceX has achieved something monumental. So how does SpaceX break the pad turnaround record with 2 Falcon 9 launches in just 6 days? The Falcon 9 rocket family was created and is now used by private manufacturer SpaceX. Reusable first-stage boosters are a characteristic of the Falcon design, and they can either land on a ground pad close to the launch site or a drone ship at sea. In December 2015, Falcon 9 made history by landing propulsion-assisted after orbiting a payload. The cost of launching is greatly decreased as a result of its reusability. In order to break the previous record for the heaviest payload launched by a Falcon 9 rocket, SpaceX blasted an additional 54 Starlink broadband satellites on Saturday night from Cape Canaveral. The use of a new generation of Starlink spacecraft to offer existing cell phones with a global connection was announced by SpaceX and T-Mobile days before the flight. At 11:41 p.m. EDT on Saturday, the Falcon 9 rocket at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station launched, marking SpaceX's 38th launch of the year. After 15 minutes, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 launched a stack of Starlink internet satellites into an orbit with a range of 144 to 208 miles. The launch vehicle selected an inclination of 53.2 degrees towards the equator as its target orbit. Storms and lightning in the area of the launch on Saturday night made the weather unpredictable. Storms stopped SpaceX from launching at 10:22 p.m. EDT, but conditions were better for the second of 2 Saturday night launch possibilities at 11:41 p.m. The Starlink 423 launch on Saturday night carried 54 Starlink payloads, 1 more than SpaceX's most recent missions to the same orbit. SpaceX has tested changing tiny things like the engine throttle to boost the Falcon 9's lift capabilities. The largest payloads ever launched on the Falcon 9 were 53 satellites on recent Starlink missions, which enhanced the payload's performance. And now hold up, if you're watching us for the first time, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can enjoy our future videos while getting updated. Getting back to the topic, according to Jesse Anderson, a SpaceX engineer who offered commentary on the firm's launch webcast, the satellites launched on Saturday night together weighed more than any other payload the business has ever launched. The Starlink 423 mission was launched roughly 33 hours before NASA was scheduled to launch the enormous Artemis 1 moon rocket from the nearby Kennedy Space Center, approximately 5 miles north of where the Falcon 9 is set to launch from Pad 40 at the Kennedy Space Center. Moreover, SpaceX launched its most current Starlink satellite 2 days prior to the firm announcing a partnership with T-Mobile to use the following generation of Starlink satellites to connect directly with cell phones. Interestingly, the gigantic new Starship rocket from SpaceX, which is currently under production, will be used to launch the second-generation Starlink satellites, which are substantially larger than the current type. Recently, Elon Musk and Mike Seibert, the CEO of T-Mobile, attended the announcement at SpaceX Starship launch facility in South Texas. The newest Starlink satellite, Starlink V2, measures around 23 feet in diameter. The Ku-band, Ka-band, and laser communications antennas on it will be the same as those on the current generation of Starlink satellites. Musk added a roughly 270 square foot deployable cell spectrum antenna. The robust antenna will be sensitive enough to pick up weak signals from pre-existing cell phones. Seibert added that they are working with SpaceX because they are using a portion of that spectrum that most phones already know how to connect to. It's much like building a cellular tower in the sky, just a lot tougher. In reality, most phones should function with this out of the box. With a phased array antenna pointed upward and a radio linking to satellites passing overhead, SpaceX has so far concentrated on serving residential clients for the Starlink network. The Federal Communications Commission recently granted SpaceX regulatory authority to offer Starlink service through antenna terminals mounted on automobiles, RVs, ships, and airplanes. To support cell phone services, SpaceX is now entering the market. According to Musk, this won't have the same amount of bandwidth as a Starlink terminal. However, it might eventually do away with cellular communication dead spots. Although it is a challenging technological problem, Musk remarked that they have it functioning in the lab and they're sure that it will work on the field. There is quite a bit of extra gear and software on the satellite. For public safety, emergency responders, and those who reside in or travel through rural areas without conventional cell phone service, Seibert emphasized the value of cell phone to satellite connectivity. It will first be made accessible on T-Mobile's most popular cell phone plans at no additional cost in the mainland United States, Hawaii, significant portions of Alaska, Puerto Rico, and U.S. territorial waterways. By the end of 2023, SpaceX and T-Mobile hope to have the Starlink V2 system operational so the beta testing may start. However, the Starship launch vehicle that SpaceX plans to utilize to put Starlink V2 satellites into orbit has not yet done so. If the Starship program is delayed longer than anticipated, Musk stated that SpaceX is considering an interim solution to create a scaled-down version of the Starlink V2 satellite that can fit on a Falcon 9 rocket. Starlink V2 standard design is too big for a Falcon 9 launch. SpaceX has launched 3,162 Starlink internet satellites, including prototypes and test models that are no longer in use, as of Saturday night's Starlink 423 mission. The 57th SpaceX mission, which took off on Saturday, focused primarily on putting Starlink broadband satellites into orbit. And now recently, the SpaceX launch team started packing super chilled densified kerosene and liquid oxygen propellants into the 229-foot-tall Falcon 9 vehicle. They were stationed inside a launch control center just south of Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. During the final hour of the countdown, helium pressurant also poured into the rocket. The Merlin main engines of the Falcon 9 underwent chill-down or thermal conditioning for flight in the final 7 minutes before liftoff. The guidance and range safety systems aboard the Falcon 9 were also set up for takeoff. After takeoff, the 9 Merlin engines in the Falcon 9 rocket's 1.7 million pounds of power were vectored to head northeast over the Atlantic Ocean. After launching, the rocket ran faster than the speed of sound for nearly a minute before switching off its 9 main engines. To help guide the booster stage back into the atmosphere after it separated from the upper stage of the Falcon 9, the booster stage fired pulses from cold gas control thrusters and extended titanium grid fins. 8.5 minutes after launch, the rocket made 2 braking burns to slow it down for a landing on the drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas around 400 miles downrange. In SpaceX inventory, the first stage for the flight on Saturday is referred to as B1069. After suffering damage during recovery on a drone ship during its initial mission, which launched a Dragon cargo ship in the direction of the International Space Station on December 21st, the booster completed its second space journey. The rocket's landing legs and engines were damaged during the clumsy recovery, which caused the rocket to tilt as it was being returned to Port Canaveral aboard the drone ship. For the April launch of 4 astronauts to the space station, SpaceX and NASA were obliged to move to a backup Falcon 9 rocket due to the damage. Originally, B1069 was scheduled to be used for that launch. However, it has since been upgraded with new engines and other parts. During the second stage burn, the Falcon 9's reusable payload fairing was discarded. When they splashed down under parachutes, a recovery ship was stationed in the Atlantic to rescue the 2 nose cone parts. Moments after, the Falcon 9's second stage engine switched off to place the Starlink satellites into orbit on Saturday's mission. The first stage touched down. Within 15 minutes, 21 seconds, SpaceX's 54 Starlink satellites, which were made in Redmond, Washington, were confirmed to have separated from the Falcon 9 rocket. The flat-packed satellites were freed from the upper stage of the Falcon 9 by the release of retention rods from the Starlink payload stack. The 54 spacecraft will deploy their solar arrays and complete automatic activation procedures before using ion engines powered by Krypton to move into their operational orbit. For SpaceX worldwide internet network, the Starlink satellites will be launched into one of 5 possible orbital shells with varying inclinations. The satellites will start beaming broadband signals to customers after they reach their operational orbit. Customers will be able to purchase Starlink service and connect to the network via a ground terminal that SpaceX will provide. And it's a wrap. What are your thoughts on the Starlink's constellation of satellites? Will it be that efficient? Comment below. Also, please leave a like and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos. Goodbye!